Hello there, everyone, and welcome to Rediscovering Your Passion and Purpose with Patty. I am Patty Stulen, your host, and I am the Chief Pathfinder of Pathways with Patty. And it just so happens that the day that I am doing this recording is on a Thursday. And many of you already know I consider it a thankful Thursday because I am so thankful to have this opportunity to meet people from all over the world and get to share they get to share their stories on this platform. And for that, I am very thankful for that. And I am thankful once again to my guest who is here with us today so that she can inspire you and motivate you like so many of my guests have done on a weekly basis. And my guest today is Jenn Chow. She is an ICF-certified empowerment and joy coach. She helps women transform from disconnection to a life of freedom, joy, and truth. She is Taiwanese-American and has been living in Japan for more than 15 years, helping individuals and students realize their inner potential and build confidence to make strides. Hello, Jenn. How are you doing?
Hi, good evening. I'm doing really well. Good evening from Japan.
Yes, good evening from Japan. You know, I've said this before, and I know for the younger generation, not that I'm ancient and I'm not claiming to be, but this is where I just think technology is absolutely the finest. I mean, I'm just starting my day here in California. You are ending your day in Japan, but we are getting to interact with one another, and we are almost worlds away. How cool is that?
That's amazing. I love it. I love that, we can have this connection because years ago we wouldn't have been able to even have met anywhere, like
Exactly,
anywhere. Yeah.
exactly. Well, I was so inspired from our initial call and knew right away from meeting you that your story was one that needed to be told on this format. And so with that said, I don't want to keep our audience from hearing your story. So please tell your story about your challenges and the obstacles that you met on through your story. So where you've been, where you have gone, where you are now, and where you plan to go.
Thank you so much. And of course, thank you again so much, Patty. I loved like the first time I talked to you, I was like, I really want to get on this podcast. You're so bright and you're just fill me with warmth and
Oh,
create such an easy and safe space for me to be able to share my story. My
oh,
story
thank you.
is, yeah. I mean, my story is kind of, it's not, I feel like it's not really for the faint of heart, I feel. But anyways, let me just start.
Yes.
So, hi everyone, my name is Jenn, and like Patty introduced, I'm Taiwanese-American. So actually, I was born in Taiwan, and then my family immigrated to America when I was about 2 years old. And so right off the bat, I was this immigrant kid in the States, and I couldn't speak any English. My parents couldn't speak any English. We were just very, we were in this little bubble. And I really struggled with that for a while. I couldn't speak any English until I was about, elementary, fourth grade. And it just, I really had a hard time finding like my identity. My family was very Asian and Taiwanese, but then I was living in this place where my teachers used to tell me like, why are you speaking Chinese? You should be speaking English because you're living in America.
Oh
And
my
so,
gosh.
that was really, it was really scary. I mean, I didn't know how to respond to that, of course. And
Right,
so,
right.
yeah, so that was kind of the first little the identity struggle that I had growing up. And then you hit, puberty. And then I started to realize I don't think I'm kind of like the other girls in my class. I'm not really interested in, talking about boys and blah, blah, blah. And I was like,
Mhm.
uh-oh, there's something a little bit off. And, nowadays with, technology and like, and, everything being what it is now, the LGBTQ community is very it's more talked about now. But
Mhm.
back in those days, because I'm quite old, back in those days, there was nothing out there. Like it was very hush hush. I think Ellen came out and she lost her career. Like, it
Mhm.
was the time like that. And so I was starting to recognize that I probably was not straight. And so while I was going through that kind of self-discovery, my father actually passes away due to suicide.
Oh.
And I had no idea. Like my mom, bless her heart, she protected my brother and I in the best way that she could at that moment and told me that it was from a heart attack. And
Mm-hmm.
so for the next 8 something years, I actually didn't know. I did have a suspicion because it was just so random. And
Right.
um I mean, that was like another kind of label spat on like plopped on my forehead now. I was now a part of a single, like my mother was a single, she was a single mother. I was a single parent family. We lost my father, who was the only one who worked in my family. I just felt suddenly like I was very, very different. And I was already struggling with that difference when I was discovering my sexuality. So I just felt like there was something so wrong with me. And I had nobody to talk to. um I mean, I didn't know what to do. My mom was struggling on her own, like trying to take care of me and my brother
Mm-hmm.
because she was there by herself. So I didn't want to cause any trouble. I didn't want to show her that I was struggling with anything. I didn't want my friends to pity me.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know what to do. So I really worked on, putting on these masks to just, be the goofy person, the one who just, loves life, and as a way to kind of to as a way to also trick myself into thinking that life is all good. But
Mm-hmm.
while deep inside, I was struggling so much with, feeling really, really different, not knowing why I was born, what was wrong with me. There were no resources at all. Um, Also, the fact that I kind of had a suspicion that my father did what he did, and I felt like I was really guilty. This is kind of a survivalist guilt sort of
Mm-hmm.
situation.
Mm-hmm.
And just really not knowing what I was meant to do and why I was here. So while I plastered on this mask of everything's all good, I was really just dying inside and really struggling. And I started to, well, I mean, I was just very angry at myself, at the
Mm-hmm.
way my life had turned out, why I was so different. And I was so ashamed of who I was. And that shame came with a lot of self-hatred, and I couldn't accept myself. And I just really thought, I need to be the good girl. I need to just live life as calmly as possible. Just get through life, and it'll be okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so in trying that, I started to disconnect from myself, and I started to feel like there was nowhere that I belonged. I didn't belong in America. But I was raised in America, so I also didn't belong with the Taiwanese Asian group. I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't straight, but I pretended to be straight, so I didn't belong in the straight group, nor did I belong in the LGBTQIA group, which wasn't really existed at that
Mm-hmm.
time.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't belong with my friends who had, two parents and whatever, and so I had no place of belonging. And so when I graduated college, I decided, you know what, I'm going to move. I need to get out of here because I America was just so full of a lot of hurt and bad memories and
Right.
struggles.
Right.
So I got, I was lucky and I got a job overseas in Japan, and so that's teaching English. So I went off,
Mm-hmm.
I flew halfway around the world to kind of get away from everything. And it was a great opportunity because it gave me this fresh start. Nobody knew who I was. I also could create this new person. I didn't have to keep putting on that really heavy mask that I had put on for the last, 10, 15 years and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really nice to be able to rediscover myself.
Mm-hmm.
And that was when I started to really just open up to myself and just find who it was that I truly was. And since, no one was around, and by that time, the LGBTQ community was getting a little bit more attention. People were starting to talk about it a little more. I'm still in Japan, so it's still quite hush hush, but it's
Mm-hmm.
not as openly homophobic or any people they just leave it alone. And
Right.
so that was a very safe place for me to kind of explore in the way that I could explore.
Sure.
Um, so yeah, after a few years, I met somebody, got really close and blah blah blah. It was good. I think I just really was able to kind of discover who I was and to be okay and not have to put on this face, because finally I'm in Japan. I'm already very foreign to everybody, so I didn't
Mm-hmm.
have a place of belonging. So I realized I don't belong here. I don't belong anywhere. You know what? The only place that I really can belong is to belong to myself. I need to learn how to belong to myself and make that place of belonging for myself. And it wasn't until a few years ago when I hit rock bottom. I was working like crazy. And I discovered coaching. And when I discovered coaching, I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I realized that the so much of my life has been run by all these expectations and stories and beliefs that I have been told by my culture, by society. You have to be this, you have to go to this school, you have to play the piano, you have to get this kind of job, you have to marry a man. And all these stories I had been telling myself has been actually chipping away at who I authentically was. And when I realized that, I realized life is basically just a series of decisions and choices that I could make. And who is to say that these stories are actually true? I can make a story. And so this whole thing about me not belonging, why? Like, why do I have to belong to your group? Like, I can make my own little thing. And so that's when I really started to realize, okay, like I can choose my life as like, I can choose the life I want to live. So I no longer want to say sorry. I no longer want to be sorry for who I am, who I was. I am who I am, and I love the person that I am. I've gone through a lot of stuff. I'm still continually working on healing myself as well, and you know, a lot of childhood trauma and things like this. It takes a long time because I've been sitting with these messages for a long time, but I feel like now I'm much more comfortable with who I am, my identity. I am who I am, and I just feel like it's just when you realize that, life just becomes so much easier. And I don't really care like what people say. I'm just gonna go and find my way, what makes me happy. I'm just gonna do that. And as long as I'm not hurting anybody, I'm just gonna be living my life. And so that's where I am now. And I feel like it realizing that kind of opened up this pathway. It's kind of like a North Star, guiding star of just knowing like, okay, well, I know where I want to go, and no one can really, veer me off.
So several things that I'd like to ask you about what you just shared with us. First of all, you're probably, you're an adolescent when you're figuring out for yourself. It's like, um, I don't feel like the other girls, or I'm not reacting the way that they are. And that's such a difficult age in the first place. And you already have so many things that you feel are against you already, because you're probably, still working on mastering English, and you're still in an area where you feel different, and that you are different in so many ways that just for anybody, whether you're gay or straight or whatever you are on the spectrum, we all know that those junior high, middle school years are horrendous. They are so in in your world, it's even worse. And then on top of that, then you have your dad, who all of a sudden he's here one day and one day that he's not. So now that's another thing that just, like you've said, complicates the situation. I would also imagine that in the Asian culture, it probably, and I could be totally off base, and that's why I don't mind asking these questions. I would think that it would be very, that anything dealing with homophobic, or not homophobic, homosexual tendencies or anything would be very hush hush.
Yes. Overall, I was like a big hush hush person. Like the whole thing. Like, first of all, anything that deals with not looking good on the outside, because with Asian culture, your reputation and how you look to other people, it's so important. And so with what had happened to my father, that was already in itself like a very big, like, oh my God, like that's like it's sort of like in a very unfortunate and bad way to say, but it's kind of like a stain. And so it's not something that people want to say like, oh, so for a long time, I think it was just kind of like, oh, he passed away because of a health issue. And nobody really wants to know like, oh, well, oh my gosh, like, because when you think about suicide, it's always usually something that is tied with mental health.
Right.
And that is another topic that nobody in the Asian community really, it's very, very, it's still very hush, right?
Mhm.
And so that plus the homosexuality, it's very, we don't see it, we don't talk about it, and you can be whatever you want, but you still have to get married. You still have to, on the
Ah,
outside, look like you are quote unquote normal. And
there are
so,
those expectations, high
yeah,
expectations.
exactly. Get married, have kids, and that's it. And
Hmm.
so for the longest time, that was the story that I had in my mind. And so I thought, you know what? Okay, actually, when I was in high school, when I was starting to really realize this is, oh my gosh, like I don't think I can actually pretend, but I can't also, it's not an option for me to live the life that I wanted to live. So I'm going to have to somehow just suck it up and just either, I don't know, like just find somebody and just get married. But it was so, I mean, it was dark. Like I could not see the end of the tunnel. And it was just like,
Hmm.
what do I do? And so I think that was another push for me to really leave, because I just thought, well, I knew that if I continued to live in America at that time, I don't think I would have made it. I really felt just so dark. Just everything was, there was no hope for me to live a life that would be happy. I would just literally be like a robot.
Hmm.
And I was not ready to live the best years of my life as a robot. And I just thought, I need to leave. I have to get out of here.
Yes. Well, concerning your dad's death, and you saying, I think it was like 8 years later that was it your mom that finally told you what he had done?
Yes, and she had actually told me, because I was going to Japan and because I was about to graduate university. So I left for Japan right after I graduated, and she was like, "Well, you're going off and you're going to be an adult, and I think it's time that you like And it was a really really difficult conversation, but
Hmm.
at the same time, I told her like, I kind of already knew, and
Hmm.
it like I understand, I completely understand, and I don't think, I mean, if we were to go back in time, I don't think I don't know what I would have done if I was in her shoes.
Hmm.
But as I'm working through my inner work, I'm working with a coach, and we're doing a lot of shadow work. I was able to uncover that actually, with because she had kept it a secret for so long, it really did a lot more damage than it really should have, because it
Hmm.
really screwed up with my trust. I was not able to trust people, because the person who I thought I could trust the most, first of all, I could trust my father to stay around, but that was obviously not something. But
Right.
the next person who I was supposed to be able to trust completely unconditionally had lied about something this big. And so I understand, but there's a lot of things that I felt like, oh, So in these couple of years, when my mother and I had been creating like a better relationship there, I did tell her, like, you know what, I really did wish, like, I know you did the best that you could, but I really did wish that you had told me what had happened, because then we could have worked on it together. And she had to
Hmm.
put on a very strong face
Hmm.
that, she was definitely struggling on her own. She didn't talk to anybody, and she was alone in this foreign country with no family, a few friends, but having to put on this brave face to take care of me and my brother, who were really, really small at that age.
Right.
So yeah, I mean,
Well,
in,
and the other thing that I would imagine through all of this, because you probably put on yourself the extra pressure of, I have to be the good girl. I have to be, I cannot cause any problems. My mom has enough issues already, along with everything else. I could see when you describe all of it as being very, very dark for you,
Mhm.
of needing to find a different place to go to. And really, it's kind of ironic that you would go to Japan to teach English when coming to America, United States, you did not know
Yeah.
any English, so kind of a full circle moment there. Now, when you went to Japan, I mean, is the Taiwanese language very similar to Japanese, or did you have, I mean, how did that whole thing go? Because now you're in a whole nother country again with a whole new language.
Yeah, I think I did study a little bit of Japanese when I was in university, just to like survive. Like I had a plan always to kind of move out of America
Hmm.
that was always my thing. I just had to get out of this country. And so it is similar in the way, like, I studied a little bit of Chinese when I was young. I wasn't a good student, so it all kind of went in one ear and out the other.
Uh-huh.
But the Chinese characters are quite similar, and I can kind of read it a little. Like I know what the meanings are.
Hmm.
But I did it's really similar because Japan had, taken over Taiwan and the history and stuff. I don't really know history so much, but we were occupied
Mm-hmm.
and stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
culturally, when I was a little kid, so I was born in Taiwan, and I went back to because my relatives all live in Taiwan, so every year we'd go back. And
Mm-hmm.
so Taiwan, I knew, was very, very heavily influenced by Japanese culture. So the pop, the pop culture is definitely huge. And so I
Mm-hmm.
kind of grew up listening to a lot of Japanese and Chinese. And at a point when like all these languages are all just kind of mixed in my brain, I kind of thought Chinese and Japanese were the same languages until,
Okay.
yeah. So going there, it was kind of, it wasn't too bad.
Mm-hmm.
And because I was also placed in the countryside, so I had to learn it as soon as I could because no, but there were no signs, anything in English. So you
Wow.
want to learn a language, you throw yourself in, like immerse yourself.
So really, by going to Japan, you are starting fresh. You have a clean slate. You don't have any it's like nobody has any expectations of you. You can create whatever it is that you need to be able to start this new life for yourself.
Right, right. And a lot of people ask me, like, why didn't you choose to go back to Taiwan? But I was like, but there's so much connection. I have
Mm-hmm.
family in Taiwan. I can understand the language in Taiwan. I've been
Mm-hmm.
there so many times and I
Right.
know what to expect. So I really just exactly like you said, I wanted to be born again. And I just
Right.
chose this like place, which wasn't like, and Japan is also safe. And I'm coming
Mm-hmm.
here by myself. So that was the only like kind of thing that my mom was like, I don't think she would have allowed me to go to, like, I don't know, some other country, but Japan, she's like, yeah, it's kind of close enough to, Taiwan, and it's safe and you're going by
Mm-hmm.
yourself, then okay. So
Mm-hmm.
it was really like I just felt like, okay, fresh new start. Nobody knows me. I don't know what to expect. I'm living in this, like, I don't know, there's rice fields and frogs in front of my house. I was born, I lived in LA, so, it was all very new.
Well, I mean, I really, what courage it took for you to be able to do that, to know for your own self-preservation. So possibly you not ending up and doing the same thing that your father ended up doing to himself, whatever his reasons were for that. But I think there's so many people that we think, oh, if I could just go to someplace different and start a whole new life, everything would be better. And then we just go back to our same routine.
Mhm.
But you not only thought it, you actually did it. And I mean, what courage it takes. And immediately I'm thinking of my friend Brenda and her coaching stuff. Her base, part of her basis foundation is that self-love and self-care is not selfish. And in what you did, that's exactly what you did. For your own self-love and self-care, you had to make this move. And that is something that the majority of us would only think of or dream about doing. So congratulations to you for having so much, which you probably did not realize at the time, so much self-love for yourself and caring for yourself, that you did a very selfless act to to save yourself.
Thank
I mean,
you.
that's incredible. That's incredible. And what a wonderful example, which I would think that because you are doing life coaching, you can relate to people on such a different level than many coaches. I mean, I know for myself on a very different scale, but kind of the same thing. I was always and continue to be a goal setter, and one of my retirement goals, and I would always share this with my students when I was teaching them about setting goals, is I always said when I retired I wanted to sell my home and I wanted to travel the United States full time in a motorhome. Well, guess what? The last 4 years, I've been doing that. And everybody, there's so many people that I talk to when they learn that I'm doing it. Oh my gosh, you're living my dream. You're actually doing it. And, it is true that, I actually followed through on that dream. It started out as a dream, it became a goal. And I've been achieving that. But it's one thing to say it, thing to do it. And those of you that are out there listening, if it is, I mean, this is called rediscovering your passion and purpose. And sometimes that's what we need to do, is to take that. I mean, the first step's the hardest one, isn't it, Jen?
Yes, definitely.
It's the most difficult. But once you do that, it's incredible what you can find about rediscovering what your true passion and purpose is. And Jen, I think just from you telling your story, especially when you got to the part in your story where what you have designed for your life and what you have created for your life in Japan, I mean, I could physically, for those of you that are watching on YouTube, hopefully you see this, your face, your body, everything lightens up. It ignites, because you can tell you have a passion and purpose for what you are doing in your life there. And I know how that relates, because I'm doing that also. And someday I hope to be back in what I call a brick and mortar. But in the meantime, I'm living out my number one retirement goal. How cool is that?
That is awesome. Oh my gosh, that's really awesome. Congrats for you too.
Yeah, but I mean, because that saying is, how do you eat an elephant? Well,
You
one
start.
bite at a time. You did the same thing. Your elephant was knowing you needed a change. You needed to go somewhere else to discover and be able to explore who you believed you really are. And how many of us just follow along with what tradition says, or what society pressure that we put upon ourselves.
Mhm.
And you work on playing the game and following the rules, but deep down inside, you know that that's not you. So you took that elephant and you took that first bite, and look where it has led you and what you're doing. So with that, I know in the introduction we talked about, I had mentioned that you you not only have transformed yourself from a disconnection of life, but now you're doing that to help other women to live a life of freedom and joy and truth. So please share with our audience some examples of how you do that when you work with people.
Thank you so much. I mean, first of all, that's such, oh, it's so nice to hear that. I feel like living the dream that you set out for yourself is like the most, I mean, that's what we're here for, I think. And
Yeah.
it's not to say that everything is, all flowery and rainbows.
No,
It's,
no.
it's definitely
No,
got
no,
its ups and
no.
downs, of course, right?
That's right.
Yeah. But I definitely, so with me and my clients, what I do first is awareness. I really have my clients become aware, because there's nothing until you're aware of where you are and what's happening in your life.
Hmm.
So going back to a little bit in my story, like I realized that I was really not happy, and I realized that there was just a dark hole, and I realized, and I just knew that if I continued down this path, like you said, I probably would have done what my father had done. Like it was
Hmm.
so clear to me. And once you realize this, then you have to find a way to get out of it. And
Right.
so a lot of the people that I work with are women who have, followed life by the rules and the stories and the little guidelines that they've been set out by
Hmm.
society, by their parents, by teachers, or whoever. And they realize one day, hey, something's off. And I don't know exactly what it is. I've ticked off all the boxes. I
Hmm.
should be happy, but
Hmm.
there's something wrong. Or I have, I have a boyfriend, or I'm in a relationship, and this person ticks off all the boxes, but I'm not happy with them. There's something always missing. We're always fighting about these things. And why? Because on paper, this person looks perfect. I work with people like this, and what we usually do is realize, well, what is coming up? Because what you become aware of is usually, it's not the other people, it's not the situation, it's not where you are in your life, it's something is misaligned inside. And that
Hmm.
is what you have, realizing that your true self is telling you, this is not what we want,
Right.
right? And there's something else that we want. And for some of them, for some of the clients that I work with, we have to first sift through and see and look, what is it really, who is that little inner child, what is she trying to say, or what is she actually trying to crying out for. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a very, very scary step for a lot of people because
Oh, yeah.
yeah. I mean, a lot of people don't want to look and realize that their reality is actually everything that they don't actually want.
Mm-hmm.
And so we sift through that. And then it's really important to create that space, the safe space to explore and to explore with non-judgment and just curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
And when we work through that, just telling yourself that there's no judgment of this is right or this is wrong, that you're living the wrong life or the right life. It's just a life that, you're living a life, but perhaps you don't truly want it. And it doesn't mean
Mm-hmm.
it's bad. It's
Right.
just not what you were programmed onto this planet to want.
Right.
That, first of all, being non-judgmental and being curious, whatever comes up, just let it come in. You don't have to judge it for like, oh, that's a really bad thought, or that's not good. I shouldn't want that. No. Just be curious. What is that? What is this? Oh, I wonder why I want this. Okay, think about it a little and maybe try some things that might hit. You don't know. It's all trial.
Mm-hmm.
If it's just basically a game. And
Mm-hmm.
I what I also tell my clients are like, I mean, with what had happened in my life with my father, the biggest lesson he had actually taught me was that life is not so serious. Don't take it so seriously. Like, I mean, not
Mm-hmm.
that he taught, but like what had happened, I realized and I learned that anything can happen at any moment. So don't take it so seriously.
Right.
Don't put so much on yourself that you would choose something so grave and so horrible of an act. Like,
Right.
it's not that serious. It doesn't have to be.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So going through awareness is definitely always the first key that I have my clients work on. Like we do it together, and this takes a long time. I mean, there's no right pacing or there's no
Mm-hmm.
no fast and slow. But once we get into being aware, then we can start accepting. Accept that this is you. And
Mm-hmm.
it's okay. It's
Mm-hmm.
okay that you want what you want, even though everybody else or society or your parents don't think that's what you should want. But
Right.
if you want it, it's fine. And working on that is also another huge thing, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
for me, coming out to, I did come out to my mom, and that was a really, really crazy story. But but that in itself was not as hard as coming out to myself and really admitting to myself, because I
Mm.
had worked so hard on suppressing it. And this is so bad, I should not be having these feelings, this is something is definitely wrong with me. I worked so hard to really accept myself. And so everything that we in the happiness that we want in our life, there's something that is keeping us, perhaps there's something that is keeping us from allowing ourselves to be happy. And
Right.
just we have to realize that we are allowed, and that we should just accept that we can be happy, to accept that
Mm-hmm.
we are happy. We are happiness, and we can be happy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and
And
we deserve happiness.
we do.
And I think there's many people that don't think that they do based on the choices or decisions that they've made throughout their life. But the bottom line is everyone, your life matters, as I say at the end of every episode. And because your life matters, you deserve to be happy.
Hmm. Hmm.
And what I love about how you just described when you're working with people, number one, you are definitely creating a safe space for them because you know how important that is from your own experience. So you know right away you are creating a safe space for whoever works with you, whether they're gay, straight, whatever they are on the spectrum. Number two, the other thing that I love is that you are guiding, you're a guide, basically. You're just posing some questions to them, but it really is about you're working with that person and helping them to self-discover.
Hmm.
And I think for many of us, we're thinking, oh, I want to meet with this person. I want to, I'll tell them my story and I want them to fix me. And that's not what you're doing. It's about self-discovery is what it is. It's finding out where you've been, where you are, and where do you want to go. And a
Mhm.
really good life coach, as I'm learning, the more I learn about you, you are that person, because you're not going to tell them, you're going to guide them. And
Yeah.
that's what a good life coach does.
And the truth is, I don't know. I don't know what the best thing is for you. I mean,
Exactly.
we have everybody is absolutely unique. So this is where it's also really, really what I've learned from coaching was the non-judgment. And it's
Mm-hmm.
not it's like don't judge yourself, but also don't judge people, because who are we to judge other people? Our
Exactly.
experiences and our beliefs and all these stories that we have are completely different. You can put, twins, they've done so many studies. I'm not very good at, but I
Mm-hmm.
know that they've done studies with twins who have all biological same things and stuff, but they live completely different lives. We can't judge other people. And so everyone is completely unique. So I have no right to tell you what you
Mm-hmm.
should do. And I have no power to fix you. I can barely fix myself, but I'm working on it.
Yes.
So all I can do is be a buddy in our little caves, and I can hand you a light and we'll just walk it together. But
Mm.
you're gonna have to hold the light and you're gonna have to take the steps. I can't take the steps for you, but I'll walk by
Mm-hmm.
you.
Mm-hmm. What a great analogy. You'll give them the light and you'll be right there with them, knowing that, as you enter that very dark cave and cavernous area, that you have a support person, which is you, to help you and to support you, through this journey, because it is not easy, and many times it's not fun, and there's a lot of tears. And as I learned and my mom learned when we went into grief counseling after my dad had passed away, because I was never a crier. For me, and it wasn't because my parents placed this on me. I put it on myself. I felt that if I cried, I was showing weakness. And what I
Mm-hmm.
learned through Greek class is that tears are healing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in the last 13 years since my dad has passed away, I've done a lot of healing. Let's just put it that way. And you know what? That's okay. That is not a sign of weakness. So I'm sure that through the self-discovery process that people have with you, there are probably a lot of tears that happen as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's so funny that you said that, because I was taught that tears were weak. And so
Mm-hmm.
I learned not to cry. And this is something I've been working on as well, is learning how to cry again. And
Uh-huh.
and you're exactly right. Like, it is healing, because what tears are just, they're us um releasing. It's just
Yeah.
releasing emotions. It's just the physical form, just like breathing. We have to breathe out, right? It's just,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's so natural. And so
Yes.
when people cry, I think if anything, I'm like, yes, let it out, because
Mm-hmm.
can you imagine? It's like toxicity that's
Oh,
just kind of
yes.
going inside, and it's gonna poison you.
Yes.
Let it out. Because I
Yeah.
know I kept that in. I kept my tears in for so long, and I, like, I had to fly across the world. Maybe you don't have to do anything that dramatic. Just cry and just let it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but and the other thing too is, don't apologize for it. I know I still do this. If I get real emotional and I start crying, I'll say, "Oh, I'm so sorry." But yet when that happens, when somebody's doing, cries and they say that, I go, please do not be sorry. This is not,
Yeah,
so don't be sorry. I mean,
yeah.
let the tears go, because that means you're having a breakthrough. That's what I have found.
Yes,
You
it's
are
a breakthrough,
having
not a breakdown.
Exactly. Yes, it's not a breakdown, it is a breakthrough. And those tears are healing you and moving you forward to go through that storm. In grief counseling, they call that a grief storm.
Mhm.
And I would think the same thing is when people are working with you. It is a bit of a grief storm, because you got so much grief over things, maybe choices and decisions you've made through your life, that you just thought you just had to hold on to it and you had to own it. It's okay to let it go.
Mhm. It
Yeah.
definitely is. Yeah.
So Jen, through your journey, what was there a point, or has it been something that's always been a part of you, that you realized that you had a passion for helping others?
I think it was something that I just realized after, from a very young age, but especially after what had happened with my father. And I just, I think the way I had seen how it colored life for me was, it was so painful.
Mm-hmm.
And I would not wish that kind of pain on anybody. And having to kind of figure it out on my own, I didn't have anyone to really talk to. I didn't talk to anybody. Um when he passed away, like it was just, all right, continue getting up in the morning, eating breakfast, going to school, like nothing, we didn't do anything. I did eventually go into, I had to see a therapist because my mom found out that I was actually self-mutilating
Mm.
as a result of all the pent up poison that was, I didn't know how to cry. And so I found another way of releasing. So I actually started self-harming, and I ended up, getting a bit, anyways, she found out, and then so she threw me into therapy. So that was when I was in, I think it was either high school or university. So it wasn't actually, it was quite a while.
Mhm.
Um, but I don't remember what the question was.
About what was the best piece of advice that, or excuse me, that when did you know that you started
Yes.
having a passion for helping people?
Thank you. Yes. So, yes, seeing how hard it is to go through things like this by yourself, I became very sensitive, hypersensitive to like anybody who was struggling. And I was like, I want to be there for you because I know how hard it is to be alone and to have to try to do this by yourself. And a lot of times, like I felt so alone through the whole process of whether it was dealing with my father, dealing with my sexuality, dealing with this identity crisis of like not knowing where I belonged. And I
Mm-hmm.
just really always wanted somebody to be with me. Like, I don't care. You don't have to have the answers. I just don't want to be alone. And I want somebody to just hold me and say, it's going to be okay. And
Mm-hmm.
so that really started quite early. And I didn't really know how I would be able to do that. So in university, I majored in psychology and sociology because I thought maybe I want to be a therapist. But then I came out into Japan, and then I started teaching. And I was like, this is another way to help people.
Mm-hmm.
Being a therapist required a lot of schooling, and I was like, I want to take a break.
Mm-hmm.
But I was a little bit nervous because I was afraid that whatever I would be helping people with in the psychology industry was, it might trigger me. So I wasn't really sure at that time. So I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I'll teach because there's no harm in teaching. And
Right.
then there, it was also really, it was a very eye-opening experience because not only was I helping people through just what I thought, just teaching them English, I was helping them create a pathway to their dreams. Because a lot of the people or not all of them, but some of the students were like, I want to go overseas. I want to live overseas. I want to see the world because Japan's a little island, and
Mm-hmm.
I want to get out of here. And I'm like, yes, okay, let me do this. Let me help you.
Right.
And it's been an amazing opportunity to also be able to just help them in that way as well.
Mm-hmm. When you just mentioned about the self-mutilation, was that in a sense, did you discover because it was a physical way to show how much pain you were in internally, do you
It
think?
was, I think so. I think in a sense it was tears. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know, like I literally did not know how to cry. And every time when I was a kid, if I ever got in trouble and I cried, my mom always told me that's stop it. Crying never
Mm-hmm.
fixes anything. And it's weak. And so if you cry, you can see it on your face. And so I was so
Right.
scared of being found out that I was crying. And so instead, you can hide these things. Right? You can kind of find places that you could hide it, right? And
Sure.
so in a way, it was a way to release a lot
Mm-hmm.
of anger that I felt. And also another point was because then a lot of it shifted from it was sadness, but it was also a lot of anger that I had about my sexuality. I was so
Mm.
angry about the body that I was born in. I
Right.
mean, I know now that I'm completely lesbian. I don't want to be like a man or anything. But at that time, that was either there was no other choice. Like you couldn't be
Mm-hmm.
like you just did I want to be a man? Like that was also kind of a thought that had popped into my head. Like, okay, if I wanted to live the life that I wanted to live, I can't be in this body. There's something wrong with my body. And so it
Mm-hmm.
was also a way of like kind of punishing myself and like not punishing, but like, this anger
Yes.
that
Yes.
I had towards
Yes.
myself.
Right.
Right. So
Wow.
that was a lot.
Yeah. Oh,
But
yeah. Yeah. I mean, wow. Incredible. And so with all of that, was there a piece of advice that someone along your life's path gave you that has stuck with you more than any other piece of advice you've ever been given?
hmm, there's been a lot, but I feel like the one thing that popped in the first thing that popped in my mind was I had a I had a counselor given like kind of like a free counselor from my office. They were giving out these stress tests, and I had completely failed my stress test. And they're like, here, talk to this lady. And the lady was like, you, Jen, should, how about practicing being more present in life? And I was like, what does that mean? What do you mean present in life? I'm very present. And she's like, no, because you're always thinking either about your past or your future. You're always worried about, what the next steps are, not even just the next step. It's like 10 steps forward, like, or you're always like, you're hanging on so much to the past. How about just take a breath and look at the flowers and like, how do the flowers make you feel? And I had never, ever been told that. I've always been told, think about the future. Like, where do you want to be? How much money do you want to be making? Like, what, blah, 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 like things like that. So my brain had been programmed to be thinking always future, future, future. I need to be doing all these things. And I just have a habit of really like looking and connecting with my past and everything. So I never took a breath and just kind of like stood still and just stared at like the sky. And even if I stare at the sky, I'm always like, oh my God, how much longer do I have to look at the sky? But she was like, just do it for 1 week. And then like, tell me what you think about it next week when we meet. And I was like, okay. I felt so silly at the beginning. I just kind of sat outside and looked at the little frogs and I was like, okay. But it really helped. I just suddenly, the whole world stopped for a second. Up until then, I felt like it was just, there was always so much going on. And so that I think there's so many more, but that's the first one that popped in my mind because that actually started my journey on coaching because I was like, where did you hear about this, ma'am? Like, where was this being present thing? I was like, have you heard of coaching? I was like, no.
So yeah, be in the moment.
Be in the moment. And why not?
Yes.
Because we only have, what is it? FOMO? No, not FOMO.
Yeah, fear of missing out.
Right. Or you only live once. That's the one.
Yes. YOLO and FOMO. I mean, yes, exactly. So let go of the FOMO and YOLO.
Yes, there we go.
So I know that with yourself perhaps, and then with people that you work with, they all have someone that when they share their grand ideas or their goals or aspirations or their intentions, that there are those naysayers that they come across, or people that I say that like to yuck your wow. When you have that, or when you have one of the people that you're coaching, when they express that, this person yucked my wow, or they were a naysayer, what advice do you give, or what have you found for yourself that works best with dealing with those people?
Well, I just tell them like, who are they to say anything? Are they living the life that you like? Are they living the life that you want? Like you want? Are they living your life? They're not. Do they know anything about you besides what you told them? No. They can't judge anything about you. They're only saying like 0.00001% of you. There's so much more that they don't see. So why are you going to let them, this person who absolutely doesn't know who you are or anything that you've gone through, decide or say anything or judge you? You are so much more than that, and they don't know it, and it's fine. And if you know what, and if that doesn't work, it's a projection. Usually when people are naysayers, there's something that triggers. Because I mean, think about yourself. I mean, with my ex, when we used to fight all the time, there was always things that would, that she'd do that would really bother me. And then I argue. And then after, when I calmed down, I realized, oh, it's because she did something that I don't like about myself because I do it. Or I really I criticize myself for doing the same exact thing. It's usually a projection. And so if you realize people will react however they react, but it's because it's based on their own experiences. Right. They've also assumed a lot of things about you. So, just thank you very much, but no thanks.
Very good. Excellent. So right now, where you are in your life, what are you passionate about personally and professionally?
Personally, so are we talking about just anything?
Yes.
I'm really passionate about kickboxing. I don't know if that's the
Oh,
answer that you want.
yes. Hey, I mean, that's personal. If that's what your passion is, yes, please share that.
Yeah. Well, yes, I'm passionate about, health now. I'm getting a little bit older. I woke up and I turned 35 and I was like, everything hurts. So definitely making sure that my health is okay. So a little bit more on exercise. I'm starting to realize that it's a little bit important.
Mm-hmm.
And professionally, I want to continue doing what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
Really just helping more and more people. My goal is eventually to actually spread coaching more into Japan and into the Asian culture, because we gotta get going with this, because it's so amazing. And I mean, coaches, I think everybody should have a coach. Like
Mm-hmm.
coaching doesn't have to be like, it shouldn't be this huge, like, oh my gosh, what is this? Like, I don't need a coach kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you don't know how helpful it is just to be able to speak to someone and not have them judge you, and not have them like shout advices and here and there, and you should do that, you should no, just to be able to share ideas and have people bounce back questions and make you think a little, to get more clarity. It's
Mm-hmm.
so helpful to moving your life wherever it is and getting whatever it is that you want, or working towards whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
So my whole passion, my professional passion, is really just to create this. I want to make coaching accessible to everybody in the world. I want, and I especially with the Asian side, because I think we have a lot of pent up, suppressed people.
There you go.
Yeah,
And what is your purpose personally and professionally?
my purpose. So my purpose, personally, is just to live my most authentic life. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm not, as a coach, though, I'm not saying that I've gotten it all figured out. There are still
Right.
many days that I'm kind of like, oh my gosh, what is this? And I don't get it. But definitely my passion and my purpose is just to live the most authentic that I can be, and just be as true as I can be, and not be scared of what people think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's my personal purpose. My professional purpose is really just to be able to help as many people as I can.
Mm-hmm.
um,
Very
that's it.
good. And what would you say is your superpower?
My superpower, I would actually think it's me, my life, my story is my
Mm-hmm.
superpower. I
Mm-hmm.
used to think about my story as this really shameful and dark and horrible story, and I never told anybody. Like, and now I'm on this podcast, which potentially can reach the whole world, right?
Yes, yes.
But I feel like everybody's superpower is their own story, because
Mm-hmm.
we all have this unique story and this unique experience that we have on Earth, and you don't know how much people really sometimes need to hear it and know that they're not alone in whatever they're experiencing. So in just sharing, and you being so amazing, and creating this podcast for us to be able to share, there's so many people who, maybe somebody who's struggling with, their identity with, LGBTQ person who might be
Mm-hmm.
listening to this, and who might be Asian and did not grow up with somebody who represents, I think
Mm-hmm.
sharing the story and being able to be like, hey, I'm not alone, and there's someone out there, and they're living life, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. But
Yes, yes.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
that
I
is
think,
that is a superpower indeed. You're being authentically yourself.
mhm.
I mean, that is super. That is awesome. So, how would you say that you are living your best life, or as I like to say, living your best dash?
Mm, living my best life. I think I would say, how am I living my best life? Just by really checking in every day and making sure that I'm choosing what I want to do because I want to do it, not because somebody else told me to do it. Or, and also sometimes making sure that this is not myself, the self that was created by years and years of beliefs and stories. But really checking in with myself to make sure that, okay, this is what I want to do because I want to do it, and this makes me happy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good. Awesome. Are there any final thoughts or words of wisdom that you would like to share with our audience?
You are all very, very beautiful human beings, and don't let anybody ever tell you anything else. And you deserve all the happiness and all the love in the world. And you're allowed to live your best life.
Mm-hmm. Amen to that. Well, Jen, thank you so much for being my guest today. I really have enjoyed having you here.
Thank you so much. I really, really enjoyed it too here.
Will you please tell people how they can connect with you? Because I know there's going to be several people, once they've heard this episode, they're going to want to know how they can reach out and talk with you.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. I'm usually most active on Instagram. So you can follow me at Chow, CHOW _coaching. That's my ID. I'm also on Facebook. So under Jennifer.Chow.50.
Mhm.
And I have a website. So you can definitely go and check out my website. It's Chow, CHOW coaching, chowcoaching.com. And LinkedIn, again, Jenn Chow coaching. So yeah.
And then those of you that have been a steady listener, you know this, but those of you that it's new, all the links that Jenn just talked about, when you finish listening to this episode, you can go to the description, and in the description, whether you are watching it on my YouTube channel or you are listening on one of the podcast platforms, you will see those links. So all you have to do is click on the link, and you will have direct access to Jenn and be able to talk with her and just feel the warmth of her sincerity of how she not only cares for herself, but can help and care and guide you with that light that she said that she'll help you through that dark place in your life. Yes, exactly. Thank you once again, Jenn. I really enjoyed this.
Same here. Thank you so much.
Well, for those of you out there listening, remember to subscribe and follow this podcast. Go ahead and invite your friends and family to subscribe as well. And don't forget to check out my website at www.pathwayswithpatty.org. Sign up for a Zoom chat with me. We can chit chat, and we can also talk about if you have a story that you would like to share on the podcast as well. And while you're at it, you can get my Pathway to a New Beginning roadmap. So until we meet again, continue to live your best dash and know that life's an adventure, and I want you to enjoy the journey because your life matters. Thank you for joining us today, and may God bless you all.